Today I have another auctions video for you. So I've got 10 Elvis items which recently sold on a well-known Japanese auction site. But before that I've got 3 Elvis related items to show as well. So let's have a look at the first one. This one is actually a magazine article that was pulled out of the magazine, and the seller is trying to sell this 6-page magazine article. I guess this was published in 1977. At the top of the illustration there you can see it says Elvis, What Happened? So this is actually a Japanese magazine article about that notorious book, and I just wanted to show you it because of the illustration on the first 2 pages there. So you have a guy with light brown hair actually lying on a bed. He seems to have yellow pajamas on, some resemblance to Elvis. It's obviously meant to be him. And then the syringe there in the bottom right corner, and at the top of the picture you can see a naked woman walking towards the bathroom. So this is meant to represent Elvis, sex, drugs and the rock and roller. But the image, the illustration just made me chuckle, so I thought you might enjoy seeing that. This has actually been for sale on the auction site for quite some time, and the seller is asking about $13 or $14 for it, but I don't think he's going to get any takers. Everything else did sell, so let's move on to the second one, another Elvis related item. This is actually an EP by Shelley Fabre, and this one sold for 5,000 yen, or about $45. It's in a gatefold cover, and the title of the EP comes from one of the songs, which is called I'm Growing Up, which for some reason they've called Today in Florida in Japanese. It's on the Colpix label, and it's interesting from an Elvis fan's point of view because on the back cover there it has a photograph from the Go Happy movie, which it mentions in the bottom right corner. It's a gatefold cover, so on the inside you have another photograph along with the lyrics, and you can see here that's another picture from the movie with Elvis and Shelley outside the Seadrift Motel. It's quite a rare EP is this. It got a little bit too expensive for me though, 5,000 yen. And the last Elvis related item I want to show you is an LP. This one's by the Jordanaires. It's called Spotlight on the Jordanaires, and it's sold for 6,850 yen, which is around about $60, and it's on Capitol, and it was also released in America. Inevitably there's some Elvis music on there, although there's actually just one song, Don't Be Cruel, and you can see that this album is on a really striking red vinyl. I think most, if not all, of Capitol records were released like that in the 60s. I've got a few records myself like that, and they continued to release albums on this red vinyl into the 1970s. So let's move on to the Elvis items now. So 10 Elvis items, and we're going to go from the one which sold for the least amount to the one which sold for the most amount. The first one is a set of laser discs called Elvis the Movie Elvis Box. This was a set of 7 laser discs, and these are all the Paramount movies, the Paramount movie collection. Originally this sold for 34,000 yen, and in the auction it sold for 2,300 yen, which is barely $20. But the reason I was interested in this set was not for the LDs, because I don't watch LDs and I don't have an LD player. The reason I was interested in this set was because it comes with a set of 7 movie programs. Now these are basically reprints of the originals, but they're still nice to have. And in the picture here you can see all 7. The first one is King Creole. Original copies of this one sell for a lot of money these days. The second one just behind that is Easy Come Easy Go. The third one is Roustabout. You can see Kathy Lean's arm there on the right. The next one is Girls, Girls, Girls. The cap is the giveaway. Then you've got Paradise Hawaiian Style, Blue Hawaii and GI Blues. So a bit of a bargain that set, 2,300. Also, to buy that it would also cost $10 or more to have it sent to me here in this part of Japan. Shipping in Japan is not cheap for things like laser discs and LPs. Singles and CDs, you can have those sent fairly cheaply, and posters as well. But once you get into bigger items like LP records, it can get pretty expensive. The next item is a cassette from 1973, Fool, Elvis Presley, it says there on the label, and that's because they called the album Fool in Japanese. And I'll show you the front of the cassette and the auction closing price. So it sold for 13,000 yen, which is a lot of money for a cassette, well over $100. And the number 19 there at the top tells you there were 19 bids. So there was a lot of interest in this cassette. The photo on the J card there is actually the one they used on the LP back cover in Japan. And you can see there's the letter C there on the right, the logo with the letter C. That says Cobalt Cassette. So yeah, Japanese cassettes from this period are very hard to find. Next up is a poster, movie poster, and this is for the movie Clambake, which sold for 18,500 yen, around about $170. And what you can see here is the top half of the poster, and that top half is about, well, it is the same size as that poster behind me. It's a B2 size. And you can see in the bottom left corner there some Japanese text, and that says blue. And if we go to the next photo, this is the bottom half of the poster, and at the top there you can see some yellow text, and that says Miami. So the title of the movie Clambake in Japanese was Blue Miami. And also at the top of that second sheet of paper you can see there's a white strip, and that's the space for you to stick the top part onto the bottom part. So it makes one very, very long poster, which is the same width as the poster behind me, but double the length. The seller also had another poster for the Frankie and Johnny movie, but that sold for less. I think that sold for about $100. Next up is a set of albums from 1977, 8 LPs, which sold for 20,900 yen. In this case you can see the final prices over on the right there in smaller figures. That's because this particular auction has 10% consumption tax on it. So this must have been sold by a store. If you run a business and you auction items on this particular website, then you have to also charge 10% tax. So these albums come from 1977. This was a series that was released. Some of them came out just before Elvis died, good timing, and some of them came out just after he died. And I don't particularly collect this series because it's mainly 1950s albums. There are 15 albums in the series, and about half of them are from the 50s, and all of them are in stereo. And yeah, so I don't particularly go out of my way to collect stereo pressings of the 50s albums. The 60s albums in this series are worth having. I have 2 or 3 of them, and they all sound great. But this set sold for quite a lot of money. I was surprised that this sold for so much. I'm guessing it was because they all have the obi and they're all from the same series, and they were all in pretty good condition. I think if you bought this set for $200 overseas, you'd be getting a good deal. But in Japan, I think you can expect to pay a little bit less normally for these albums. Next up is a 4-channel Quadradisc LP. This is from Elvis in Memphis, and this one sold for nearly $200, about $180. According to the Japanese discography, this book here, this was actually the world's first 4-channel stereo record. This particular pressing here, I can see it has a 2,300 yen obi. So this would have been released around about 1973, so it's not the first pressing, which came out in 71. But still, it's a very hard record to find with the obi. And there were 13 bids on this record, so it's, yeah, there was a lot of activity on this. The rarest copy of this album actually came with an orange obi, which dates from around about 74, 75. If you're interested in acquiring Japanese 4-channel stereo Elvis LPs, there are actually 8 to collect. There's From Elvis in Memphis, On Stage, That's the Way It Is, Madison Square Garden, Aloha from Hawaii, Recorded Live on Stage in Memphis, and The Promised Land, and Today. So you'll have your work cut out for you if you want to get all 8 of those. The last 2 in particular are very hard to find. The next one is an LP. This is Frankie and Johnny in a gatefold cover, and this is the first RCA pressing, and this one sold for 27,000 yen, or a whopping $250. And the reason for that price, I think, is because it still has the obi here. The first orange label RCA Elvis records from Japan are very hard to find, and especially with the obi. This one comes with the first red obi from JVC, so this would have been released sometime between 1969 and 1972. There's also another one with a different manufacturer, and that was available from 1972 to 1975. What you can see in this picture is a box with 4 LP records. That box was actually a free gift, and what you had to do to get that free gift was, back in 1971, you had to buy 3 albums in order to receive it. Those albums were That's the Way It Is, Elvis on Stage, and Elvis in Person. And they were known as Elvis on Stage Volumes 1, 2 and 3 in Japanese. If you bought those 3 records, you could get that box for free. So the 4 records that you can see in the picture here, they had nothing to do with this box. Now, this box also has a little hook just above where Elvis's head is on the right of the picture, and that was so that you could hang it on the wall. So it was actually a storage box which could also be used as a wall mountable panel. And this one sold for about $275. Next up is a 78 RPM record from late 1956, early 1957. This is Love Me Tender, Anywhere You Want Me. And this sold for 36,100 yen, well over $300. And the reason why this one went for such a high price is because it still has the insert with it. Those inserts almost never turn up with the 78 RPMs. And it may be because they didn't come in bags. I'm not sure about that, but I've never seen a Japanese 78 in a plastic bag. So it's possible they didn't come in a plastic bag and the inserts just got lost. It doesn't help that the inserts are a different size to the records as well. And there were 4 pages to those inserts, and on the first page, just like this one here, you got the picture of Elvis with the song titles, and on the other 3 pages there were some liner notes in Japanese and lyrics to the 2 songs. Next up is an original 1950s LP from 1958. This is Loving You. This one sold for 39,000 yen, or about $350. Again, there was a lot of activity on this, 30 bids on this particular item. I've actually shown my copy of this album on an earlier video. I did an album of 1950s Japanese Elvis LPs, so if you haven't seen that, please check it out. Believe it or not, there are 2 cover variants for this particular album. It's a very rare album, but there are 2 different covers. The first one, like this one here, it has white letters over on the right. So you can see it says Elvis Presley in red, Loving You in yellow, and then in small white letters it says something like from the Paramount movie Loving You. There is a cover variant which has black letters. And finally, an EP from 1957, and this one sold for much more money than anything we've seen so far in this video. And this is Top Hits Volume 11. And over on the right you can see there it sold for 165,000 yen, including tax, or about $1,500. A lot of activity on this one, 37 bids. It's a very rare record. In fact, this book here does not have a photograph of this particular release. On this particular EP there are 4 tracks, and 2 of them are by Elvis. Those Elvis songs are Lonesome Cowboy and Too Much. It also has 2 other tracks, one by Julius La Rosa, a song called Mama Guitar, and the other one is by Eddie Fisher, a song called Tonight My Heart Will Be Crying. So you can see from the price how rare this particular item is. Okay, so that winds up this particular auction video. I'll try and do another one at some point in the future, but that's it for today. Thanks a lot. Take care. Cheers.